ladies and gentlemen. It's Ukrainian talk show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and today's guests are Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Moment. There I am.
Okay,
Thank you, Sasha.
great
Glad to
to
be
see
here as
you.
always.
And Ivan Kucherenko from Kyiv, Ukraine. Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hello, Sasha. Hello, Jonathan. Glad to be here today with you.
So yesterday was a greatest day in humankind history, comparable only to the birth of Jesus Christ, but probably it's even bigger.
I sense a hint of sarcasm in there, Sasha, but that's okay.
It depends. It depends what's
Yeah.
your point of
Depends on what party you're with.
your party you're with, and for some people it could be sarcastic, and for some people it's not even serious enough. Because yesterday was the actually, I wouldn't even say beginning. It was probably engraving in stone a new American Revolution. It's serious.
I would agree. I would agree with that. That it's a huge paradigm shift, no matter how you look at it.
Absolutely. On all levels,
Yes.
it's a foreign policy, it's a, domestic policy. It's so many things are that I'm not in a position even to spend even 5 minutes on that, because you can find it elsewhere. There's
Yes.
more than enough information of what's happening. But what I would like to mention, some very interesting development in the last couple of days that probably will greatly benefit Ukraine. And I'll tell you what it is exactly. In the last couple of months, right after Trump won the election, Russian stooges started to not even politely, but quite openly suggesting that Trump has to do certain things to satisfy agreements reached between him and Russians. And if he's not going to do it, then he has to increase his the bodyguards, because something bad could happen to him.
Oh, that's not even a pretense at subtlety.
No, there is no such thing. And furthermore, now already about inauguration time, guess who is Mr. Patrushev, supposedly second in command after Putin in Russia. He came up with absolutely ridiculous stance where he suggested that Russia is taking very seriously American threats and will act accordingly. And he was threatening with all kinds of things openly. So this wouldn't endear Trump to Russians. And I'll tell you another reasons why Trump is now feels that he's insulated from Russia. And that's explained why he made contact with Chairman Xi from China, and why he's going to see him very quickly. What's happened, if you will go back, say, 20 years ago, even Trump's son, Donald Jr., he at one point he acknowledged that Russian capital pays disproportionately large amount in Trump's businesses. It could be true. No, nobody knows for sure. But if his son said so, so most likely it is.
There's probably some
Probably,
substance.
probably. Okay, let's accept. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a little bit of a truth. Okay, let's compromise. As we discussed in our show, here is a compromise. So, in the last couple of days, with Trump's, some people call it Committee 20, which means 20 top leaders of high tech in the United States of America. They helped Trump to create a new Trump coin. That coin went ballistic in the last couple of days.
Mhm.
And today's Trump, instead of being worth about $5 billion on a good day, all of a sudden he's now worth $55 billion and growing.
Well,
That,
that puts him in my scheme of things. That puts him clearly at prosperity level 4.
that's right.
Yeah, prosperity. Just so you know, yeah, prosperity level. The top 3 levels of prosperity: 3, 4, and 5 in my scale. Prosperity level 3 is where you're worth more than $1 million, less than $1 billion. Prosperity level 4 is where Trump and people like Musk and Bezos, they're all worth more than $1 billion, less than $1 trillion. So now prosperity level 5, that's, well, right now Elon Musk is in the lead for that.
Well, but he's not there.
No,
But
he's not there.
Putin is there as we speak.
Really?
Personally, oh yeah, his wealth is well over $1 trillion. At least it was a couple of years ago. I don't know. Maybe it went down. Maybe it went up. Who knows? But
Maybe he's been spending his own fortune trying to finance the war in Ukraine.
well, actually, he is making even more money than before because of the war of Ukraine. However, what I wanted to notice is that for the first time, when being 79 years old, for the first time in his life, he is truly, indeed, financially independent. He doesn't need Russian money. He doesn't need Russian stupid
He cannot possibly be bribed by anyone.
No. Finally, the day came. Even if that would happen, say 3 months ago, Musk and the company wouldn't be so successful with him because he doesn't need it. But today, indeed, Trump is on his own, completely independent, completely financially independent, I would like to say, and he can now mold things in his understanding, in his image. And so, okay, he has now a lot of advisors around him. Some probably would be more useful than others, but they are there, and Trump has them at his disposal. And
Correct.
if he will use it wisely, he can do great things in the foreign. I wouldn't.
A good analogy for this, Sasha, would be if you've ever read The Lord of the Rings by Tolkien.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, President Trump could be said to be now in possession of the one ruling ring, the Ring of Power. And as you know about what Tolkien said about the Ring of Power corrupts its user.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
There's the danger.
Yeah.
And so now, okay, President Trump is now as close as one can realistically get to possessing the one ruling ring of power, which over time it is fortunate for President Trump that he only has that kind of power for 4 years. Yeah, because it can be very dangerous to him personally, possibly to the nation. But I will say he's got enough of other allies and countervailing forces to where I think he is in a position to do the maximum amount of good for the country. But
he has potential to do.
Yes, he has opportunities and openings.
Yes.
It now remains to be seen how well he can take advantage of them.
He completely solidified all available power in the United States. He has Supreme Court on his side, the Congress, the Senate, everything is right on his lap. He controls everything. There is not visible opposition, there is no any opposition, and all independent media, if they will be a little bit anti-Trumpian, they will be crushed, and very quickly. So now they have to
particularly, Sasha, if I say when President Trump manages to deliver in a visible and substantive way on at least one or two of his major promises, and do that so as quickly as possible, then he will have a political momentum going into the midterm elections that will be hard to stop or reverse. So.
Absolutely. And if he will go through midterm elections successfully, and so far appearances are that he's going to do that, and then there will be J.D. Vance for another 8 years. So the Democrats will not see power for at least 12 more years.
I was teasing some of the Democrats at my local church. I said, if you Democrats are not careful, you will see 4 years of Trump, followed by 8 years of President Vance, followed by 8 years of President DeSantis, followed by 8 years of Barron Trump, because by that time, Barron will be able to run for president.
Absolutely. So there will be
And by that time, Democrats will really be hating life.
well, listen, Democrats getting what they deserved because major thing. Look, if you're objective, Trump won what, 1.5 million, maybe 2 million extra voters compared to Joe Biden, right? So as much as Biden and Kamala Harris by associations, they were so despised by American people that they decided that it's a lesser of evil to have convicted felon at the height of the world power than to have another 4 years of Joe Biden or Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
So it's not even so much victory of Trump, which is absolutely deserved, mind you. It's a complete failure of Biden and Kamala and all the Democratic party, and they will have another 12 years to figure out their mistakes and try to maybe get some power back in 12 years. And I don't think that they will be successful even.
Keep in mind also, in American history during the Cold War, the Democratic Party managed to hold power control of Congress for several decades, actually. It was very rare for the Republicans to even get control of the Senate. That was during Ronald Reagan's first term for 2 years. Other than that, the Democrats controlled Congress. But of course, the Democrats back then were, comparatively speaking, compared to today, much more conservative. And they also agreed on the overall Cold War strategy of containment. Both parties agreed on what the strategy should be, and they held to it. So for the Soviet Union, it did not matter which political party was in power. They were both unalterably opposed to Soviet expansionism. And now that this has repercussions and consequences for what we are facing today in the situation in Ukraine. And on that keynote, I'd like to pitch the ball over to Ivan, who I believe don't you have either a comment or a video?
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Actually, I have not much to say about the Trump being elected now officially being a new president, old new president of the United States. There is no still decisions. 24 hours almost passed, but there is no
no ending the war in one day.
No ending the war in one day, and he already accepted that it would have more time to end this war, because actually the only desire of President Trump, the desire of Ukraine to end this war on the conditions which will satisfy Ukraine and which will based on the international law and on the which will punish Russia actually for their invasion. It will be they will be based on just a simple understanding of justice, and it's not a quick progress. And from the other point, Russia is not going to end this war on any point except of their requirements to demilitarize Ukraine, as President Zelensky stated today in Davos. Russia wants Ukrainian army to be decreased 5 times from the number which is now, which will make Ukraine completely defenseless.
Essentially, they're demanding unconditional surrender of Ukraine.
Actually, and until they have capabilities to continue this war, until they have economic resources, until they have people resources, until they have old rusty Soviet weapons, which are depleted, but they are getting weapons from North Korea, they're getting weapons from Iran, they will continue this war. So it will have much more efforts from President Trump and his team to actually make Russia end this war, but not to push Ukraine to accept Russian conditions, because it will be a major loss of United States in the world eyes, much more worse than the flee from Afghanistan, which
Exactly.
President Trump said that it was a catastrophe for the United States foreign policy and the United States image. So I hope he will have some more time to prepare for negotiations with Putin, and he will actually have some instruments to make Putin end this war. And from what I've heard from his inauguration speech, is that he's going to increase the amount of oil and gas produced in United States, and that hopefully will decrease the prices and will lead to more economy.
It will lead to real
more
problems for
destruction
Russia.
of economy in
Yeah.
Russia.
I think that even today, Trump already has understanding, which he lacked, say, 2 months ago when he was promising to finish the war in 1 day. I think today he understands that it's a more complex situation. And I suspect that he went even beyond that. Now he sees that ceasefire on Ukraine and Russia is just a small piece of a puzzle. I think that he sees it in much deeper view, that there is a China involved, and he wants to get China on his side as quickly as possible. Then there is a European countries like European Union or NATO. They are involved, and they're already voicing certain things that they, as the major helpers of Ukraine, together with the United States, they should also have say of what's happened, because it's obviously security of Europe is being decided as well. So there are a lot of things happening there, and I think Trump has today, I'm pretty sure, broader picture and more complete picture of the situation than, say, 2-3 months ago. And hopefully he will act accordingly. Now, Ivan, you have a movie, is it?
Yeah, it's not about Trump. It's about
No.
Oh, wow.
happening in Ukraine. But
You're
I
coming
think
to Ukraine right after the movie.
yeah, it
We
is
can always-
really great in terms of understanding how this war differs from the all previous conflicts in the world, from the First World War, which we were discussing, from the Second World War, and how it looks like more the future war. And I think understanding of this is a great opportunity for audience, for United States, to understand how the future war will look like. So let's start with this video.
Robots versus humans.
They were in panic. For the Russians, this came as a complete surprise.
The first ever assault conducted exclusively by ground and aerial drones. Such headlines recently appeared in major global and specialized media. What happened, and how did the attack, which combined different types of drones, unfold? United 24 Media learned directly from those who planned and executed this operation. Modern warfare has become extremely technological, and it is the Ukrainian army that is now testing all the most advanced developments in action. Ukraine's arsenal already includes various robotic systems that minimize human involvement on the battlefield. However, fighters of the 13th National Guard Brigade Khartia went further. This unit is responsible for defending a section of the front over 10 miles wide, located very close to the border with Russia. And it is here at the end of 2024 that Khartia conducted the first example of a combined arms maneuver solely with the help of robots. Call sign Shuhai, 32 years old, S3 officer at the Khartia Brigade headquarters.
According to our communications intercepts, they were in a panic, and the enemy soldiers on the ground were especially taken by surprise. UAV is like common sense in our time. along with ground platforms that enter enemy positions and explode, or platforms that move in and shoot at them. This approach is not common, so we catch the enemy off guard.
Shohei was directly involved in planning the operation for the first ever drone-only attack. It had a whole range of tasks to create conditions for further advancement, force the enemy to regroup their troops, destroy specific shelters and obstacles, and test the interaction between headquarters and individual crews. During the preparation stage, routes and actions of all robotic complexes were carefully calculated using physical mock-ups and virtual models. Then the robots imitated the operation several times on the training ground. The exact number of drones used in the attack is not disclosed by Hartia. However, it is known that several dozen complexes of various types participated, from small UAVs to those weighing about 1,000 pounds. These included ground and aerial kamikaze drones, ground drone with a machine gun turret, heavy bombers, aerial drones for reconnaissance and surveillance. Call sign Pan, 26-year-old chief sergeant of the UGV platoon. Before the war, he was a molecular biologist. Pan was involved in planning and directly commanded drones during the attack.
All robots that we use are manufactured in Ukraine. It was a modern combined robotic arms warfare, and each component played its role in making Day of Occupiers much worse, and it makes me happy.
The key word here is combined. Various drones have been used in modern warfare before. Ukraine was even the first country to create a separate drone division of troops. Robots in Ukraine are operated in very different fields. In fall 2024, the Ukrainian robot Furia, backed by mortars and FPVs, cleared Russian positions in the Kursk region. In February 2024, a logistics ground drone retrieved a rare Russian Orlan 30 UAV from the gray zone. A year ago, the ground kamikaze drone Karakurt traveled 4 kilometers to blow up a bridge used by the enemy with a 55 kilograms charge. Modern ground robots can mine and demine, serve as mobile EW stations, fire machine guns, flamethrowers, and grenade launchers, act as kamikazes, deliver supplies, and evacuate the wounded. During the historic operation, drones performed well.
This created an effect that we couldn't achieve with aerial drones. Additionally, our platform equipped with machine gun also reached its target and successfully completed its mission.
So did everything go perfectly? What about losses? And what lessons did this operation teach? Hartia acknowledges that there were losses of equipment. In an official video, it is visible that the enemy tried to hit ground drones with mortars, bomber drops, and their own FPV drones. But
they are not succeeded in it, but nature was more successful. One of our kamikaze drone stuck on the dirt on its way to the aim, and our turret on the way home also stuck in dirt. But no one was destroyed by Russians.
According to Hartia fighters, terrain passability and connection are currently key weaknesses of ground complexes. To understand the terrain, Hartia takes high-resolution photos of the battlefield and creates orthophoto plans with information about the current state of the area. Even though 2 ground complexes lost their battle with off-road conditions, the main aspect of using robots comes into play.
The most important advantage of ground vehicles is that it is a bunch of wires, microcontrollers, engines and batteries. When it is destroyed, we just deploy another one at the same time. If a human falls, it is irreparable.
During assaults, the Russians use numerous small groups for infiltration and reconnaissance in force. For them it's normal, but we cannot afford such an approach. However, we cannot afford such tactics because we don't have as many people. More importantly, we refuse to accept such heavy losses. Unmanned ground platforms undoubtedly have a significant future for various types of offensive operations.
As for the lessons learned, Shohei says,
the main lesson is that we are capable of planning and executing complex operations using ground platforms and UAVs. However, we need organizational improvements, particularly in coordination of ground platforms.
However, the operation's outcome is deemed successful, as summarized by Hartia. The hypotheses were tested, The equipment performed as expected. The shelter was destroyed. The enemy's reaction was provoked. Subsequent assault actions were successful, and the brigade secured a new foothold. And what about ground drones for the Russians? Is there room for improvement? Well, you'll see for yourself. Many stories about Russian robotic systems resemble sitcoms. For example, here's a demining drone, Chelnok, trying to attack a spectator. The main Russian military channel Zvezda initially aired, but then removed a segment about the combat robot platform map. Perhaps because it almost crushed the host and then flipped over. Now, Hartia states that communication between operators and drones remains one of the key challenges. Ukrainians and Russians aren't the only ones grappling with the challenges of ground combat drones. Some of the most interesting global manufacturers include Estonia's Milrem Robotics, whose tracked Themis drones have been delivered to Ukraine, the American-Israeli company RoboTeam, and the British Unmanned System Technologies. However, no one has a universal solution yet. Hartia compares the current stage of ground combat drones to the era of muskets in the history of firearms.
We need to understand that it's only the first steps that we do and that do Russians in this field, in the field of ground vehicles. And these first steps are very important, and amount and quantity of people, of resources involved in these first steps are crucial in this strategic field. But we enjoyed our result.
In 2020, there was a report about a very unique action by the Turkish-made kamikaze drone Kargu-2 during the conflict between Libyan government forces and separatists. At that time, an aerial drone autonomously tracked and destroyed an enemy soldier. For now, the mass use of fully autonomous, operator-less robots in warfare is not a reality, but it is entirely possible that this is only for now. The field of combat drones continues its journey beyond the musket era.
The Russians should definitely prepare for more operations like this. However, they will still be a surprise for them.
Wonderful video. Thank you, Ivan.
Fantastic.
It's yes, it is. Ivan, I'd like to ask you honestly that most likely you and I are following probably 90% of the same sources in Ukrainian or Russian media, and I'm trying to make some sense of what's lately happened. Is a new official of Trump administration, Walz from Florida, he suggested that Ukrainians should lower the mobilization age to 18 years old. And there was a discussion accusing him that he wants to effectively children be killed on the front lines or so on. So it's unacceptable or so on. Okay. Although many countries have age 18 and even lower, sometimes 17. However, Zelensky, in his address, in his interview, he mentioned that he has 14 brigades ready to fight. However, they cannot fight because they don't have enough weapons, which was not sent on time by US, NATO, and other Ukrainian sympathizers. Okay, that sounds like truth. Okay, so you accept that. And then 2 days ago, there was an interview by General Syrsky, who is the commander-in-chief of Ukrainian army. And there he said that he was asked by an interviewer that there are many instances where people are taken from highly prestigious positions as a fighter, plane fighters, and high-tech personnel, and they're being taken in so-called pechota, in a regular army formation. Troops, simply because they don't have enough. So how you can put together, because they are not some correspondence or some people who nobody knows about or cares. We're talking about all three very respected people. Ivan, how you are able to combine it all in one package without suggesting that someone is misleading us?
I've looked on the situation with those requirements about the lowering the age of mobilization from other point. In Ukraine, like in any other countries, there is a obligatory requirement for young people who are aged 18 to join military service and to learn military science as a conscript, actually, but this was postponed during after the full-scale invasion. But the problem is more in the field of sociology because those young men who are now aged 18 in Ukraine, their number is actually really few because they were born in 19th years where there was a huge decrease, demographic decrease in Ukraine, and in the numbers of new children being born was dramatically decreased because of hard economic situation in Ukraine. So we're talking from one point about a very few number of people, like several hundred thousands of them only. And from the other point, mobilizing those young men is a major kick to the future of Ukraine, because most of them, they're still studying, they didn't create their families, they don't have children. So if they will die in this war, Ukraine, the demographic situation in the future in Ukraine will be dramatically decreased, and in this case Ukraine actually will assist Russia in achieving their goal by decreasing the number of Ukrainians, because Russians want to decrease number of Ukrainians and tempt those territories for them. So from the third point, and this is true, what President Zelensky says, the problem is in the quantities of weapons which we have for probably Ukraine could mobilize more and more people, actually, because Ukraine is a big country. There is and it's not a point of mobilizing from 18 years. Now the minimal age for mobilizing is 25, but it can be decreased to 23, for instance, or 22, no matters. The point is that if Ukraine has enough resources to train those soldiers, because soldiers in Ukraine are not being trained like soldiers in Russia. In Russia, their mobilized soldiers are being trained for 2 weeks, and then they are being thrown in those mid-grinding attacks in the east of Ukraine. In Ukraine now, according to Ukrainian laws, the term of training for new soldiers is 2.5 or 3 months minimal. And from the other point, probably, Sasha, you've seen the analytics by the number of soldiers who are being trained by our Western partners. Like in Great Britain, for the 2024, they trained like 20,000 soldiers. The same number is in Germany, in France, and other European countries. Of course, we are thankful to our partners for the assistance in training soldiers, but they can't train hundreds of thousands of soldiers in case Ukraine will mobilize them. So it's a terms of balance in mobilization policy, and I think that neither you or me or those experts who are discussing it, they know the real situation and all real numbers about the the numbers which are required in the army, the real potential of people which Ukraine can mobilize, split it by age groups, the capabilities of Ukraine and our partners to train those numbers, and it's a point of balance between all this. And as for the situation with soldiers from other other kinds of army, like from the aerial forces being transferred to troops. As far as I know, no pilots or no engineers were sent there. It was only about the soldiers who perform the security duties for members of those mobile troops which are shooting down Shahed drones, aerial drones from machine guns, like on they're going on pickups during the drones attacks, and they're shooting those drones by machine guns. So they are actually soldiers. They don't require the military training because they already have one, and it was a quick decision to transfer the required amount of troops to the directions and to the brigades which have problems with their person. Yeah, I don't think this is a good decision. Actually, I don't support this decision because in this war every soldier is good in his place, and if those soldiers were in the aerial forces, if they were shooting down the Shahed drones, if they were guarding our skies, then probably it's better for them to be there than to be transferred to the troops into trenches and stop Russian forces from advancing. I think this was unpopular decision because of real problems with mobilization, and this is other question and other issue which should be solved by Ukrainian military command, by Ukrainian government. I don't have any ideas how this can be solved, but I'm not sure that this can be solved by dramatically lowering the age of new soldiers.
I think that Ivan, your video illustrated very well part of the strategy that Ukraine is following in order to compensate for its manpower disadvantage by relying more and more upon robots, upon drones, aerial and ground, and by doing this to a greater and greater degree. As that technology advances and the Ukrainians deploy it successfully against the Russians, that will drive up the Russian casualties vis-a-vis Ukrainian forces even more. It will also help Ukrainians conserve their manpower, and as they mobilize more and more, this will eventually will enable them to, as they get more and more, as the flow of equipment catches up, they will be able to fully mobilize those 14 brigades, fully equip them. They will have the manpower that they need, and as the technological advantage continues to shift in favor of Ukraine, there will emerge, I predict, an opportunity for Ukraine to undertake a decisive counteroffensive at the time and place of their choosing. I would predict that, as I have stated before, the decisive arena in this conflict is the Crimea. And if they can seal off the Crimea with a successful counteroffensive, both with the use of drones and other technological advances, seal it off so that the Russians cannot resupply or reinforce the Crimea, then those mobilized brigades, those 14 brigades, they can use as a counteroffensive force, a strategic counteroffensive to force the surrender of the Russian occupation of Crimea, put it back in Ukrainian hands. That is, again, a decisive victory, decisive operational victory, which will have significant political repercussions upon President Trump's desire to enforce a just and lasting peace an armistice, if you will, even if it has to be an armistice. But if it has to go to the point of forcing the Russians in eastern Ukraine to surrender and retreat, then so be it. But the Ukrainians are pursuing means which I predict, will give them the ability to do so in 2025. You don't have to wait till 2026.
Excellent. And this movie exactly shows why there is a growing new European concept of European security by integrating Ukraine into the system of European security, regardless of NATO or European Union or any other status. Because the NATO, as much as Trump has points why he's not fully satisfied with NATO, and even Europe itself is not satisfied with NATO, when you have countries like Slovakia and Hungary that can block any unanimous decisions that is required, then there is no purpose of continue to rely on such an organization. But the next few weeks will show us exactly where we're leaning with all that. So latest news, in my opinion, are very favorable for Ukraine, and your movie has reinforced that. So I would like to thank you both for today's program. And of course, Slava Ukraine. And
Героям слава.
well, glory to Ukraine. And looking forward to see you on Friday, same place, same time, with even better news for Ukraine. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.